which would normally be in full swing right now. Former Vice President Joe Biden is stuck at home in Delaware, and he is campaigning virtually. And we begin with Symone Sanders, senior advisor to Biden's campaign, and she's author of the new book just out called No, You Shut Up, which is a very catchy title, and we'll ask her about the book in just a moment. Let's get your thoughts on this news of the day. So I'm assuming that former Vice President Biden is saying that President Trump is the one that he's talking about there and lies about the coronavirus. What specifically would he be talking about?
Well, thanks for having me today. Always happy to be with you. Vice President Biden was excited and very happy to deliver the commencement today. He wishes he could have been there in person with the students. Look, I think the facts bore out for themselves here. And the reality is that there has been a lot of misinformation touted about the coronavirus. And some of that, in fact, has come from the White House. At the end of the day, though, this coronavirus has affected us all in various ways. And so Democrats, Republicans, independents, people of color, young people, older folks. And what we are currently dealing with is a public health crisis that has become an economic crisis. And that, frankly, is the cost of complacency from this administration. In January and February, the Trump administration failed to act quickly with urgency. And this is where we are. So Vice President Biden is going to continue to call it out while talking about his bold vision for the future.
All right. Well, I'm sure that that the Trump campaign would quibble, and the White House in terms of like a specific lie that would be about the coronavirus. But we'll let them try to sort that out. I'm sure that's going to happen throughout the campaign. But you don't have one off the top of your head. I can't think of one. So let's move on to this. President Trump. Well, no, I'm being honest. Like, really, like, what specifically? I would just like even like one example of a lie from the White House about the coronavirus pandemic.
Everyone that wants a test can get a test. How about that lie? Because everyone who wants or needs a test in this country is not able to access a testing. How about all the governors have the PPE and the ventilators that they need? We know that's not true. There are folks in places from California to Michigan to Florida and in between who are sewing masks for frontline workers because they don't have the proper PPE. Nurses and doctors are going into
on the PPE,
operating rooms and trash bags. And so there are a couple lies. I mean, I don't want to take the whole interview to run through them, but the reality is
no, I don't either, because there's plenty of other things to talk about. All right. On the masks thing, we'll let that go for a second, because I want to get to this, because the campaigning, I think, is very interesting. You're making history here. This hasn't happened before in the modern day, where you have a campaign, you're trying to do the communications from it. Here's what President Trump said about Vice President Biden trying to get out and campaign.
I'd love to see him get out of the basement so he can speak, because, you know, he's locked in a basement somewhere, and every time he talks, it's like a good thing. They don't want him to come out. If I'll give them the test immediately, we would have it to them today. Nobody's ever asked me for the test.
Symone, when will you be able to get Vice President Biden out and about? You know, there's a lot of ground being ceded to the Trump campaign right now.
Well, actually, we reject the notion that we're ceding ground to anyone. As we speak, Vice President Biden is having a virtual campaign day in Wisconsin. He just wrapped a roundtable that focused on rural issues. And tonight he'll do a virtual rally with local voices. And we're also doing local Wisconsin media this afternoon. And so I think the reality is that President Trump obviously is very much so interested in the whereabouts of Vice President Biden, what he is doing day to day. And Vice President Biden is out there speaking to voters, talking directly to the people. We'd love to be out there on the campaign trail. I was just telling the producers before we started the show that I missed the trail. But we are going to go out on the campaign trail when it is safe to do so. We are going to listen to scientists, and we encourage the White House to do the same.
Do you think that the vice president will leave Delaware before August?
We're going to do it when it's safe. We're going to do it when it's safe. We're going to listen to scientists. Vice President Biden is being advised by the Public Health Advisory Committee. So again, we want to do it when it's safe. But in the absence of that, we are waging an aggressive virtual campaign. We are out and about. Wisconsin this week, Florida last week. Dr. Biden was in Pennsylvania and Michigan. She was in Colorado this week. So We are out and about. We have over 112.4 million video views in the last couple of weeks. So we feel good about the engagement that we're having, and we're reaching people.
Okay. So for people who don't know you, you used to work for Bernie Sanders, and then you made a strategic decision and you joined the Biden campaign early on in this cycle. I know that your book talks a little bit about this. I mean, what do you find is persuasive when you're talking to people who supported Bernie who might be reluctant to support Biden? You had Jeff Weaver, the former campaign chair, the campaign manager for Sanders, saying he doesn't think that these Sanders supporters will turn into Biden voters. What do you find persuasive when you try to explain your own journey?
Look, I think what's most persuasive for this moment that we're currently in is the fact that Vice President Biden is working hard to earn the votes of all Americans. That includes supporters of former candidates. And he's also made it very clear that this is a campaign for everyone, anyone that's been knocked down, counted out. So we are taking that message on the campaign trail. Look, when I speak to some of my progressive friends about this election cycle, what I think surprises other folks is that we are all truly aligned. From the beginning, actually, Democrats across the board, wherever you sat on the spectrum, viewed Donald Trump as their opponent in this race, not the other candidates. And so we're really having conversations about where we align and how we can expand upon that alignment and how we're going to pool our efforts on this election this November in order to get Vice President Biden elected and then build on his progressive and bold agenda in January 2020. So I think folks will be surprised that a lot of these folks out there, a lot of my progressive friends have more in common with Vice President Biden than they think.
Do you think that mail-in voting would be an advantage for Biden over President Trump?
I think mail-in voting is an advantage for voters because, free and fair elections are as a cornerstone of our democracy. Being able to vote by mail or absentee vote or early vote has nothing to do with whether you're a Democrat or Republican or independent, but everything to do with the right to participate in our democracy. And I saw President Trump's tweets today. I'm sure we all did, right? And frankly, his tweets are absolutely misleading. He's not telling the truth. Michigan nor Nevada are mailing actual ballots to folks right off the bat. What they are doing are mailing absentee ballot applications. And I was surprised by the president's tweet, given that he himself voted by mail in the Florida elections most recently. So he should be familiar with this process.
And and there's no real partisan advantage, it looks like, if you look at the data. I wanted to ask you about the vice presidential search. Everyone's talking about this, including the president's senior advisor, Kellyanne Conway, talking about the vice president saying that he would choose a woman, and has that basically put him in a box? Listen to this.
He sounds like a co-ed at the end of a frat party. I need a woman. So now he has binders of women he's looking through, and he's got people like Sally Yates and Susan Rice allegedly on this list, and those are two women who were very involved in the shenanigans that were happening in the days before we got here.
I wonder what you think about the state of the search and if Vice President Biden is in a bit of a bind here.
We don't think Vice President Biden is in a bind. He made the commitment on the last debate stage he was on about selecting a woman as his vice presidential running mate because it was an important commitment for him to make. It's something he's thought about for a while, and there are a number of very capable and amazing and competent, qualified women, and who knows who the woman will be for the job, but I know everyone is waiting with bated breath to find out. We have a process we've established. Our Vice Presidential Selection Committee is underway, and we're going to let that process play out. And we look forward to sharing our
I have two other questions for you. I'm sorry to jump in. I have two other questions because I also want to ask you about your book. The Tara Reade allegations are still out there. There was a poll that showed that about a third of the Democrats think that this might impact them when it comes to voting in November. How are you going to try to clear that hurdle?
Well, look, first and foremost, we have to be very clear and understand the facts here. And the facts are, as Vice President Biden has spoken to a number of times, what she is alleging did not happen. But his knowledge and understanding that this did not happen has done nothing to shake his belief and our campaign's belief, and my personal belief, that women have the right to come forward and be heard. They have the right to have their claims taken seriously, even in this case. And reporters and folks should investigate it. They should vet it. And at the end of the day, what matters most is the truth. And in this scenario, the truth is this did not happen.
Do you believe Tara Reade?
As I just said, Vice President Biden said it didn't happen. I'm standing with Vice President Biden. But again, Tara Reade or anyone else has the right to come forward to speak their piece and to have their voice heard. And it is incumbent upon folks to take these claims seriously, to vet them, to rigorously look at them. And that, we believe, is what's happened in this case. And if you look at the facts, if you look at the reality that the story has changed, I think it supports what Vice President Biden has said from the beginning, that this didn't happen and this allegation
Let me ask you quickly, Susan Rice has called for the release of the Flynn-Kislyak transcript as this whole Flynn issue continues. Would Vice President Biden support the release of that transcript?
Let me say something about all of this. The reality is we are having this conversation because Donald Trump reintroduced this into the Twitter stream, if you will, as a distraction. He has seen the news just like the rest of us. He's seeing the poll numbers, and he's hearing what folks across the country are saying. They are concerned about his handling of the COVID-19 pandemic. People are unhappy about what is going on across the country. 2 million coronavirus cases, at least in America, over 90,000 Americans dead right now. So this is just a distraction. This is another one of these conspiracy theories. Vice President Biden was not involved in any criminal investigation of Flynn. And, you know, this is just malarkey, as we like to say.
All right,
and
Symone,
I'm not giving that any air today.
Let me jump in and ask you a question about No You Shut Up. I had a chance to look through some of it today, and I thought in this last minute that we have, Tom, this No You Shut Up comes from an experience that you had at CNN. But at the end of the intro, you talk about who this book is for. Let me give you a last word on that before we let you go.
Thank you. The book is for young people, folks who are young at heart, anyone that wants to create a change or help make change in this, you know, what feels like dark and dismal times that we're currently in right now. And I encourage people to get the book, to read it. I'm very excited about it. It was a labor of love. I talk a lot about politics, some about the Democratic Party, but a lot about how people can take action right now in their everyday spaces and places and help make their communities a better place.
Well, I could see that it had a lot of your pizzazz and a lot of your spunk as I read through. Thank you so much for being on today, Symone.
Thank you.
And up next, we'll dig into that newly declassified email from former